Senator Goodall, Representative Duchesne, members of the committee, I am John Delahanty, and I salute you for still being here today, this evening. And I guess I probably should apologize because the company I'm here to represent probably is the reason for this bill. But as I mentioned, my name is John Delahanty. I'm an attorney with Pierce Atwood, and here today representing Poland Spring. I waited until the end because I heard there was a room full of Nestle corporate lobbyists, so I was hoping someone else would jump up, but they hadn't, so I decided to take up a little of your time. Also, the gentleman had a picture from a Poland Spring presentation. If any of you would like that deck, I'd be glad to get that for you. I am somewhat jealous of him, though. When my beard grows out, it's totally white. At least Mr. Kingsbury still has some color to his. As I mentioned, I'm here representing Poland Spring. I won't go through all my testimony, but I'm proud to be here because I remember when this company was virtually bankrupt, was nothing. I grew up in Lewiston, and I remember going out to Poland Spring many times. And, you know, today, this small company that has existed since 1845 has grown to now employing over 800 people in the state in 3 locations. Their most recent one in Kingfield, where they had over 700 applications for the 40 jobs. And, you know, since 1992, this company has invested over approximately $440 million into this state, and each year spends approximately $100 million in payroll for its employees and for its vendors. And Poland Spring certainly has prospered because Maine is fortunate to have a significant groundwater resource. That, as you've heard and from state regulators and the state geologists in earlier days, is regularly replenished by approximately 24 trillion gallons of precipitation that Maine receives every year. And indeed, that is a precious resource. Poland Spring only uses a small portion of that. In fact, the water that it uses for its spring water, to bottle spring water, is less than the amount that evaporates off Sebago Lake in the month of July. You've heard about the regulations. I'm not going to go into the series of regulations that control our operations in this state, but the bill presented to you today, as has been noted, is very brief, but really its implications are significant. First, let me just, for the record here, the key language as we take a look at it is, notwithstanding any other provision of law, the people of this state have the same common interest in groundwater as in fresh surface water. We believe that this could be interpreted as abrogating Maine's rule of absolute dominion for groundwater. As has been mentioned, we also believe that this would transfer ownership of groundwater from private landowners to the state. It is true that Maine operates under the rule of absolute dominion, but with Maine's present system of groundwater ownership, it has been significantly altered by legislation and regulation, and now provides substantial protection for both the quantity and quality of groundwater and its interrelationship with surface water. Maine is not a state where the rule is that the biggest pump takes it all. You can't just go down and say, okay, we're going to put in a straw and suck it dry. There are significant regulations. And, you know, you can't, even if you have a Colt pistol, you can't go in and take that water in that fashion. If the common interest language does seek to transfer ownership of groundwater to the state, there's a host of practical questions. Would the state have access to what is otherwise private property for purposes of managing groundwater? Or if an environmental review indicates that groundwater naturally contains radon and/or uranium, would the state be responsible for cleaning up the groundwater? Most importantly, however, as you've heard, would this change this adoption of a common interest affect a taking of private property, thereby subjecting the state to potential compensation for a takings on what could be a massive scale. Alternatively, if the common interest is meant to focus on an easement aspect of the public trust doctrine, you've heard it could get into allocation of groundwater. In addition, when you're talking about an easement, the Maine Law Court has found that placing a recreational easement on surface waters, which were already burdened by certain public rights, would be a taking without compensation. It's therefore very possible the passage of this bill would constitute taking as well. In Texas, it was mentioned that they have the rule of capture. And in a similar situation, it was estimated that should they have gone forward with that proposal, the state would have been liable for approximately, on the low end, $24.5 billion to, on the high end, about $170 billion. I'm not quite sure our budget situation in this state could absorb what might come forward. You've heard that groundwater is significantly regulated. I'm not going to go into that aspect of it. I leave that to the regulators to discuss with you. We're fully willing to comply with whatever regulations they put on us. We do a lot of monitoring. We file many reports. Those are available for anyone who wishes to have those. So with all due respect to the sponsor and his wonderful eloquence and presentation, given the status of Maine's laws that protect both groundwater and surface water, we strongly believe there's no need for this bill and urge you to report it out not to pass. And I thank you very much for your time and patience.
Thank you very much, Mr. Delahanty. Are there any questions? Representative DeShane.
Yes, thank you, Senator. I suppose we could pay for the takings if we put an excise tax on bottled water, but maybe that wouldn't work out so well.
I'm not so sure that we'd be able to pay for the full amount and still keep our people employed.
No, more to the point, I guess, so far I haven't heard a lawyer in the room yet who can figure out what common interest really means when it applies to the law. So I guess I invite Pierce Atwood or anybody else who can research that and give our analysts some assistance on it.
Sure.
Would be probably helpful for work session.
We have some learning on that, Representative. I'd be glad to share it.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Delahanty? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Delahanty, for your testimony.